Hello everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to attend this event. My name is Chottera Barnes. I work for the Health and Social Care project team at GMCVO. Today we're very lucky to have secured Mel Safari, who's the director of Yaran Northwest, and Kush, who's the chief executive of Europia, to come along and speak to you today. Hope you'll find it interesting and informative. I know I will. Just a couple of housekeeping bits. We are recording this session so we can share it with people afterwards who weren't able to attend. So if you don't want your picture to be shown on screen, feel free just to turn your camera off. You don't have to have it on. All the presentations and stuff that you'll see on the screen will be shared with you after the event. So there's no need to take loads of notes unless you want to. In terms of questions, each presenter will give you the opportunity to ask questions at the end of their presentation. But if you want to ask questions in chat as well, you could do it that way. So I think that's it. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Mel. And she'll do the first part of the session and then it'll be Kush. So over to you, Mel. Thank you.
Thanking you. Hi, everybody. Afternoon to you all. And just when I thought I had my presentation at hand, now I've lost it, but I'm here. I'm here. Okay, so I'm going to share my... Can everyone see my screen? Yeah, okay. I can see a couple of fingers up at me. Okay, I shall put it as a bigger screen. Okay. So afternoon to you all. I'm Mel Safari and I'm one of the directors of Yaran Northwest. I'm also a qualified psychologist and CBT therapist with over 15 years experience in NHS, the voluntary sector, and I have been working with Yaran for the past 8 years now. And the service provides mental health, well-being, befriending, mentoring, support, signposting, lots of community informal engagement spaces and sessions to the Middle Eastern and in particular Farsi-speaking residents across Manchester. I'm sure just like everybody else, this year has been a very exceptional and a very different year for all of us across probably voluntary sector and the work that we have all been putting in to support residents across Great Manchester and in little localities and areas we all work with. But in terms of my team, it's been a very challenging and a very quick change and adapting world we stepped into, from having community centres and spaces and doors open to local residents where they can every day of the week drop in and out and access the services where they see the need and the demand that they want. But during pandemic, it's all gone online and it's all remote, and keeping in touch. And I think having that still engagement and interaction, especially with the residents and the community and the cohort of specific community we support, we have come across many challenges this year. And I'm sure many of you guys in the organizations you work with, and especially working with BAME residents and those from who have got English as second language, you probably would say that's been a real challenge. Not that it wasn't pre-pandemic. I think throughout pandemic and the world we're stepping into, all of those things are becoming more and more to the surface, and we're realizing that there still needs to be a lot of work we all put in across the city, from sort of the groundwork of voluntary groups and the grassroots organizations, right up to our commissioning, right up to supporting the priorities, the strategies, the visions of our senior leaders, our mayor of city, you know. So the more we talk and the more we engage, the more we bring to the awareness of the challenges we're facing, I think the more we can all work together collaboratively to come up with ideas, solutions, what we can do. So I hope today, I'm sure there'll be a lot of things I'll be talking about that, you know, you guys will go, yeah, already know all of this, but I think sometimes it's nice to have a refresher and bring our collective ideas together. So I'll take you through my presentation and I look forward to your questions at the end. So just to give you a little idea of who we are. Okay, so I thought it would be really interesting to start off with just revisiting and looking at actually what is the definition of being a refugee. And as we're talking about current challenges and inequalities faced by migrants and immigrants across Greater Manchester, so I'll read it as I understood and picked up the definition. A person who, owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for a reason of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group or political opinion, is outside the country of his nationality and is unable to, or owing to such fear, is unwilling to avail himself of the protection of that country. So this definition was quoted within the Refugee Convention. And also, I thought I'd give you a definition of an asylum seeker, someone who has logged an application for protection on the basis of Refugee Convention of Article 3 of the European Convention and of Human Rights Resources. I think a lot of times we notice and we recognize that once newly arrivals come to the country, they really kind of go through different layers of pressures. They really go through different layers of struggles, challenges, and barriers from a refugee status and stance. And once they then move on to becoming an asylum seeker, and in all of that, they rely on the system to support them. They rely on the education system. They rely on healthcare. They rely on welfare. They rely on Home Office. They rely on community support and spaces like our organizations. And all of that becomes lots of different layers for them to manage themselves in. And as they go through, they find themselves facing with another challenge and another challenge, but also building that hope and building that integration and connection into the new world environment and the society that they've now chosen to be in, and build that future of new life and a new beginning, whether it's individually for themselves or as families, or we've seen a lot of children who have been coming to the country with parents not being with them. So what does the Manchester picture look like at the moment? I put this list together where myself and my colleague Kush both sit on the Migrant and Undocumented People's Sounding Board, which is part of the COVID Health Equity drive of Greater Manchester Health and Care Partnership team. So we've recognised throughout the past year that there are specific communities who, in terms of migration, in terms of going under a lot of pressure during this year, have really been hit hard with all sorts of challenges and barriers and demands and needs, which I will come to at later stage. But the communities that we've listed, the Eritrean community, the Roma community, the Kurdish, Iranian, Iraqis, Afghan, and the African community, and specifically those from Zimbabwe community, the Syrian and the Somalians have really been the hardest in terms of that immigration and migration part that's been really affected. And I've just given you some very, as usual, boring statistics of what does this look like. And of course, we're an organization that we support the Iranian and the Farsi speaking residents. So, you know, we all know that there is a very small population of Iranians who live outside Iran. And for the reasons of migration, the biggest probably pool of migration happened just after Gulf War, which was 1979. And there are now becoming more and more that bit of three generations of Iranians. There are those who are the newly arrivals, there are those who are the mid-settlers, and there are those who are very settled and they've been here for over 30, 40 years now. And still, bringing on to the census, I think we all know there are always data and information missing. We've never had an accurate picture of actually what does that number and population and residents across UK or even Greater Manchester really look like in terms of the Iranian population or specific communities. For every single one, including myself as an Iranian, I fill any forms in. There are no options of other ethnic, there are no ethnic background option for me to tick as Iranian. I would have to go to any other and actually handwrite in. So what happens to my handwritten Iranian bit, and where does that get logged, recorded? I am not sure. So there is all of those challenges, I think, that we're all faced with. But those are areas where we hope that that's where the system taps into organizations like us to get a bit more of a clarity, to look for those ways of collaborating and getting a better picture of what those statistics look like. So a lot of things I've put on there, it's probably based on guesstimates and near enough data. It's not accurate, but it's near enough. So then I've gone on to going through what does migration status look like actually across the world, and bringing it right down to the top 5 countries that really have lots of high number of immigrants and migrations taking place. And in September, as we know, there's been a lot of, we've all watched the news where since COVID, there's been a lot of newly arrivals who have traveled through the channels and by boats, and they've been brought into the country and have all been displaced into temporary accommodations. As we know, currently in South Manchester, there are 2 hotels where they are providing residence and providing shelter to Iranian and Afghan and Kurdish and migrants from the Middle East background. I think as we speak, there are over 400 in the Britannia hotels that are residents in Didsbury area. So what are the common health issues? There is and I don't think I've listed everything here, but I think there is an ongoing long list of lots of health issues that migrants get faced with. And the very first one is that they come with lots of challenges and difficulties around physical health, and that can be physical health with long-term health issues and backgrounds, whether they've had those health issues and challenges from their home countries and traveled here and there's still ongoing problems, or whether they've gone through that journey of migrating and they've incurred those physical health problems, challenges. And again, where do they start to get support and help from for all of this? I'm sure you've all known across the system, there's a lot of, as soon as migrants come, the very first thing in their mind is, how do I get access to a better health? How do I get access to employment? How do I get access to education? And all of that then becomes a real challenge. And how do they then get registered with a GP? How do they go through registering with a dentist? How do they get their children into school? Where do they start from to get into employment? So all of these health issues and all of these challenges brings those barriers for all of those residents. So as obviously we're a mental health organisation, we provide that well-being and psychological support. We've identified over the past 8 years the sort of top mental health presenting problems and issues that the immigrants and newly arrivals really come and get support and help from are around depression, anxiety, being alone, being isolated, the lack of family, social network connection, feeling a lot of out of control and loss of identity. A lot of people come through and they say, I was a doctor back at home, I was a nurse, I was a teacher, I had my own business, I was a joiner, I was an architect, and actually now I've come here and I don't know who I am anymore, and I've got to build all of that life back up again for myself. So there is a lot of there's a lot of sense of loss and a lot of sense of, where do I belong, or I don't feel I belong, and actually how do I build that sense of belonging again for myself here, and where do I seek that support to help me with that? So then I've come up with a bit of ideas. So I sit on the also mental health VCSC leadership, and I support Manchester as a locality with my sort of a BAME hat on. And thinking about this last night, I was thinking, I mean, I don't know. So do I have the solutions? I don't think I have. Do I have ideas and thoughts that might be useful and for us all to consider? And I don't think I've put any kind of strategies or priorities or areas that none of us, you know, have thought about or think or consider. But, you know, in terms of as my hat within the leadership, to say what would be the areas that would be really good for us to maybe consider, draw upon, and especially now, these residents need support much more than when we went into lockdown and the start of pandemic. Post-COVID, post-pandemic, the challenges are going to be even more difficult, and we're all going to be faced with all of this, you know, at some level or another. So I listed a couple of ideas of strategies around, is there something that we need to do more around educating, informing, getting communities who connect with those specific, you know, residents to become those advocates, to become those ambassadors, to become those support networks and gateways and links between what is it that you need for help as an individual, and how can the system support you in this, and how can we become that navigator between you and the system. And you know, something around providing better health promotion, providing better information to people, the translation, the interpreting of materials, documents. A lot of times we all know things are not translated, or they're not translated accurately to very basic English or their first languages, for them to understand actually what does it mean when I get a letter that says I need to go for my flu vaccine, that I need to go for my COVID vaccine. How do I navigate myself through these messages, and what do I need to do? What's my next stage and next step? And then also looking at best treatment. A lot of times we think we know the answer, what the best support and treatment is for people, but actually putting them at the heart of that decision making, they feel empowered, they feel in control, they feel like they've been heard, they've been listened to, and their needs are taken into consideration. And finally, it probably brings opportunities for us to collaborate together more as voluntary sector, and not feel like that we have to do things on our own, or that there isn't any support around us. So that collective, you know, being around each other, that and bringing it all together, the great work we all do across the city, to say this is what we're here for, and this is what we provide as a city for our residents, for each other. And I think that's it really from me. I feel like I've said a lot. Happy to hear questions from you guys. Happy to explore discussion further with you all. But thank you for giving me the space and opportunity to present and talk to you guys on this topic.
Thanks, Mel. Does anyone have any questions for Mel, please?
Kat, I'm happy to share the video, or I'm happy to send it if anybody, what would you prefer me to do?
I mean, I've got it, so I can share it if you want me to. It's not a problem.
Great. We've done a little video from our organization based around specifically women, and how does migration impact refugee women within the Middle Eastern community. So Kat will share that clip with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Mel, there's some questions in the chat.
I'll have a read.
Have a little read, because I think there's some questions in there you could answer about gender identity, sexuality, etc. Oh, and Abdul's got a question as well.
Okay. Abdul, do you want to ask your question, or have you written it in there?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Hi.
Yeah, first of all, I apologize for my ignorance, that I didn't know exactly what the meeting is. I just found that I work in Tog Mine, Tameside Oldham and Glossop Mine in Oldham. And in the last 3 years, I have worked more than 100 people, those who are either refugees or asylum seekers from all the countries which you have mentioned in your presentation. around mental health. We are a mental health charity.
Yeah.
I don't know, is it the right time for me to say that what difficulties which I have noticed those asylum seekers were facing and find out if there is any solution or something else? I don't know. But I can tell, first of all, my personal thing is when asylum seekers are, if organizations or government departments expecting them to do everything online, then they should give them a smartphone, please. Lot of people, I've seen some things are happening for asylum seekers, one-to-one chat, and when I went on to website, it says you have to register online. They don't have internet facilities, man. They can't do all these things. Plus, they didn't know where to go for like a free prescription. So obviously you have to fill that form from pharmacy. Now he is filling that form and you are just all of a sudden telling him, oh, you don't live anymore in Oldham, you have to go to Rochdale now. And if you are moving even within Oldham from one place to other place, you have to arrange their post to go from this old address to new address. They can't afford to go to post office, or even they don't even know. I have to go to post office and do the change of address and my mail will come there. And other place where they were living, now they are not allowed to go inside to even get their mail. So they have so many problems, and it's not just one problem. During pandemic, I found when self-isolation in one place, 20 people are living, or 5 people are living. How they sharing the kitchen, sharing the bathroom, how they can do this isolation thing. So it's not just one problem. There are so many problems.
Mel, have you got any answers to any of that?
Do you know, I was going to say, Abdul, you're just taking all the things we've all experienced as individuals, organizations, and watching this happen across the city for all of us. I think you're right. And one of the other things that becomes a real challenge is also getting those residents to connect and know more of us. And if GPs, if the system doesn't also know who we are, where we are, how we can contribute to some of those challenges, I think that also becomes another barrier and another one. And you're right, we've had lots of residents as well throughout this year that they have phoned us and said, you know, I've gone on that, you know, you've translated the council's, you know, for my local authorities information where I can seek, call the number and seek support. I've clicked on it, I've gone on there, I've registered that I'm shielding and I need that food supply. And when the food parcels arrived, actually inside, it's a packet of digestive biscuits, it's a tin. There isn't anything in there for me, and I've got diabetes and I've got high cholesterol and I don't have those, you know, right level of food supply and support. So all the stuff you mentioned, and I think it's how do we collectively as organizations we draw upon learning. Yeah, we draw upon what's worked very well this year, what didn't work well, because these pandemics, these crises will come again in future in different shapes and forms.
I think because I know Oldham, I work there, so I don't know about other areas, but Oldham Council was doing real good job in food supply. They had real good kind of a telephone number in Oldham Council, and when I was giving that number to my clients, and no single clients complained. Every call was received by Oldham Council and food parcel went to the people's house. So I would say in Oldham, they were doing really well. I don't know about other areas. I'm just worrying about health issues.
Yeah.
Because there is no proper health for dental treatment. For one was working with client and she has got a problem eyesight test. It took me 2 months to get all this certificate and appointment for eye testing. And then we found that she has got this nose broken. So she can't wear glasses. She has to have a contact lens. NHS doesn't cover contact lens in this condition for her. Where does she go? 35 pounds a week, 35 pounds a month, a week. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
It's the 21st century and we are a developed country. It's 36 pounds a week.
Abdul, Can we just stop
Thank you,
you there?
Abdul.
Thank you for that. That's really important conversations that we can perhaps carry on outside this. Has anyone got any other questions? I'm just conscious we've got about 5 minutes left of Mel now before we go on to Kush. Has anyone else got any questions they'd like to ask?
I'm happy to speak on chat with colleagues. I'll mute and happy to respond on there.
Okay. Anyone else? Kat, you had a question in chat. Did you want to just quickly ask that one? Kat herself.
Yeah, I think in a sense Dave almost answered it straight after my message. There's the definition of a refugee from 1951 is woefully outdated. So there is no reference to sexuality, there is no reference to gender identity, which is just shocking, I think.
Yeah.
Right,
Is there any way to influence those conversations?
I think that's a really good point, and that's something that, you know, it's where Kush and I saw on the sounding boards for migrants that we have been pushing, and we're glad that we're finally having a space to hear the voice. I think it would be really good if you all agree and allow me through Kat. I will send you guys those meeting spaces and dates, and it would be really useful to have many of you guys on board on there. Absolutely.
Yeah, more than happy to do that, Mel. Just ping it over to me and I'll send it over with the presentations and everything else, if that's okay. Right, any more questions before we move on to Kush? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Okay, well, with that, thank you very much for that, Mel. That's wonderful. If I could just hand you over now to Kush, who's Chief Executive of Europia, to enjoy his presentation. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Kush Chottera. I'm the Chief Exec of Europia. I don't usually start off a presentation by apologizing, but I do think I need to. So the elephant in the room is, what is a brown person who's not even European coming here doing a presentation talking about EU nationals? So without going too deep into it, my simple response would be that I'm a servant of the community, and I have been serving the community, and I continue to passionately serve the community. And because I do like telling stories, and somebody just told me 2 days ago, I'm not a bad storyteller. When I first came into the UK, the first language I learned, because I love languages, the first language I learned was Polish. This was a complete coincidence. So sometimes I believe things are meant to be. So I'm going to start the presentation now. This is our beautiful, fantastic logo created by the community. Again, it is based on the 12 stars of European Union. The petals which you see are folk art designs, which are quite common across Central and Eastern European communities. Again, the colors are based on the flags of the countries as well. What is Europia? So Europia is a registered charity which supports EU nationals across GM. We were a small community organization when we first started. It was set up by a group of individuals who felt there wasn't an organization for EU nationals, but there were lots of organizations in support for other ethnic minorities. So for the keen eyes, again, any of you will notice that there's a star missing. And I think the star is missing here because I feel Brexit has caused the fracture, and I've used my own initiative to show the fracture over here with the missing of a star. What does Europia do? So in 2016, when we were a micro charity, absolutely micro charity, not realizing what we can do and the potential, we did again Away Day. Again, we had 10 people, including staff, volunteers, trustees, talking about what is it that the organization should do. So the vision of the organization is to support, empower, and represent EU nationals. So the community which we support are very proud, very self-reliant, and they're very, very capable of taking care of themselves. So our whole approach is, how can we empower them? So through support and training, we empower the community members. And in some instances where they may not have the time or the access to represent their thoughts and views, Europia think it's acceptable to go and represent the thoughts and views of the community. Our work, so this is something which I talk every day and I can talk for hours. So I'm going to try and time myself and say that I'm going to do within 2 minutes so that he can talk about the other important aspects. So 3 main areas of work. We do advice advocacy. This includes welfare advice. This includes OISC approved immigration advice. We do a little bit of legal literacy support through some pro bono volunteers, and we do some advocacy support as well for community members. We have drop-in sessions, we have face-to-face interviews, we can do stuff on Zoom and things like that. We are just in the process of setting up a health and social care department. We have been doing health and social care activities for many years without actually realizing that we are doing it. So we are in the process of finalizing the formal tele-befriending program for the Roma Gypsy community, but also for vulnerable EU nationals who could be over the age of 50, destitute, homeless, experiencing abuse, trauma, long-term health issues. We are also going to start a mental health helpline in Polish and Romanian, which is going to be twice a week, weekday evenings, and then every Saturday for 2 hours. We also have some funding to do face-to-face therapy, group work, and all of this can be done in different EU languages as well. The last department is the art and culture department. We were one of the first organizations to represent the Polish, Latvian, Lithuanian community in a public scale through an arts festival called Manchester Day Parade. This happens on the 2nd or 3rd Sunday of every year in June, and it is an event organized by Manchester City Council, but it's executed by a lovely arts organization called Walk the Plank. We are also really proud to say that we have an art collective. Before the pandemic, it was 18 members, but because of pandemic, things have changed. So we have 13 members. The art collective has been created very much on asset-based community development model, where they have a separate identity, where they got clear what they would like to do, and it's the artistic expression of EU nationals living in GM. So our work also includes community events, training, research, lobbying. Lobbying is quite an important part of what I do within the organization, because a couple of years ago, if you would have said, Kush, do you lobby? Do you understand lobbying? I would say no. And I think given today, I don't necessarily understand lobbying. But when COVID started, I didn't have a choice. I had to lobby. I had to go to different organizations and institutions and shout and say, there isn't anything for EU nationals in terms of information. They are getting completely contradictory information, got completely different pieces of information from continental Europe. And the British government is not doing anything to give them the relevant information in this country. So there are other parts of work which we do, which I will go into detail in the coming slides. So I have a question for you. So I'm going to put a question in the chat box. Please feel free to answer the question if you feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to answer. All I'm looking is for one word to capture your emotion. What is the one emotion that comes to your mind when you hear the word Brexit? It's not work, apologies. Okay, thank you. So I was extremely cautious about coming today and talking, preaching to the converted. So it's lovely to know that there's at least 2, potentially 3 EU nationals got EU connected nationals in today's chat, and they can completely understand what we are I'm trying to explain. Okay, this is fantastic. It's not fantastic that you're feeling this way, but it's good to hear a group of people resonate with the experiences of the community members that we serve. So our everyday experiences. This is from the community's point of view. The slide is intentionally created in this way. It is just to emphasize how challenging it is to talk about personal experiences, and how unacknowledged they are. Okay, next slide. I can't see my slides completely here, so just bear with me, sorry. So stereotyping, it's very, very common. If anybody senses an accent and they're not really sure, and if they feel they can take liberties, the first thing they would ask is, are you Polish? Irrespective of, even if they believe they were not Polish, but they just didn't know how to start a conversation, they would say, are you Polish? And it is just a simple question can have a very strong effect on people. And I think I would urge people to think, what is it that you're trying to find out, and how can you ask the same question in a different way? And the second question is, can you fix that? Can you fix this? Or do you know somebody who would do that? Do you know somebody who would do this? Like, this is not your normal day-to-day conversation. So why don't you keep your stereotypes to yourself? So these are the everyday daily experiences. So that is in the day-to-day world. So let's talk about the charity sector, the VCSE sector, the statutory sector, because we are more evolved, we are more in tune with everything. So my second apologies for today, because I don't necessarily like the terminology BAME, but I'm just using it to prove a point over here. So are EU nationals under the BAME category? No, yes, yes, no. So people can identify however they want to identify themselves. But EU nationals are ethnic minorities in the UK. Again, they definitely come under the BAME category, so they should be allowed the same support, recognition, and need for services like other BAME community members. So let's go to any simple monitoring form. What can you find? You can't find any category where EU nationals can proudly portray their nationality and their identity. So everything is clustered under white other. But the complexity increases when it comes to the Roma community. It's even more complex, because what category would they choose? Again, how is it recorded? Because of all of this, and also because of how community members see themselves in British society, we consider the truth to be that we serve an invisible minority community that nobody sees. And the community themselves also feel they need to be invisible, if not, they will attract stereotypes. So I just wanted to give some examples, not just talk about stereotypes. I was initially going to ask a question. Do people know what is EU settlement scheme? And then I decided it's going to become too technical and we may not have time. So do people realize that come 30th of June, if EU nationals who were legally allowed to be in this country can access all the rights, can live as a normal citizen, if they do not have a piece of paper, they can be classified as illegal immigrants. Just take a second to think of the terminology, illegal immigrant. From being a proud EU citizen, having all the rights, to this extreme change to becoming illegal immigrants. So the EU settlement scheme is an example of systematic inequalities. How? there's so many different levels I could go to, but the only thing that one of the most important thing that I would talk about is COVID has come and it's a huge pandemic and everybody recognizes it of its devastating effects. But when Brexit happened, it was a mini COVID for EU nationals. The feelings, the emotions, the thoughts that happened when you woke up on the morning and found out what was Brexit, and the way you were perceived, the way your neighbors spoke to you, the way your friends spoke to you, your colleagues, your children's friends, parents, teachers, everything changed. So EU settlement scheme, people may say, oh, it is straightforward, but it is the scheme which asks EU citizens who came here legally with all the right to give account for their holidays or their salaries, which is very, very dehumanizing. And I think the mental health effect of having to go through the EU settlement scheme, nobody has recognized or openly spoken about it. And there are lots of other things about the EU settlement scheme which I can talk about, but we just don't have the time today. The only other thing that I would say is that we are really proud to say that we do the EU stats for Greater Manchester on the uptake of the EU settlement scheme. Nobody else does it. We, a really small organization, we take it upon ourselves to do it. We don't get support from anywhere in Greater Manchester or Northwest. We get support from the London Mayor's office to do the EU stats. So this just talks about the institutional inequalities. The second thing, which is quite topical now, is the census. So the census 2020, and they're really proud of themselves. They got 94% or 97% uptake, which is fantastic and brilliant, but I don't think it's completely true, because I know lots of Roma community members where there is more than 1-2 families living in the same household. And we know that those numbers would not be captured. We did get a small in the census this time because of lobbying of lots of other organizations, like a national organization called the Roma Support Group. The ONS for the first time included Roma community as ethnicity. But the fact is that lots of Roma community members do not identify themselves as Roma because of the fear of persecution. So before I move on from the census, all I'll say is that there were lovely people appointed to do the work of ONS in local authority areas. So they came to us without any funding, asking us, can you do X, Y, Z? And we asked them for funding and they said no. We spent up to £2,000 creating a fantastic comms campaign and then putting the word out there. As part of our comms campaign, we were given community assets created by a £1.5 million marketing PR campaign created nationally. We were given a poster, the Polish poster with the image of people from completely different religion, ethnicity, and cultural lifestyle. How is it acceptable that you spend £1.5 million on a comms campaign and you do not have the common sense to recognize that different community members need different visual representation? This is not rocket science, is it? So moving on, hate crime. So how many people report hate crime? Very, very, very few people nationally report hate crime. So given if they do report hate crime, there is no statistical structure in place to say the ethnicity of a person can be identified or the nationality of a person can be identified. So the few people who are reporting, we don't get to know if they're EU nationals or not. We have been a third-party reporting center for centuries now. Apologies, I'm slightly exaggerating. But we get 4-5 reports. Again, most of them don't even want to take the reports forward. There's so many hate incidences that happen every day. There's nobody collecting them. There's nobody recording them. And I think it's a huge gap in the service, which we need to address. And we try and bring up the statistical part of this all the time at any meetings to say, can you identify if the people making these reports are EU nationals. They say, oh, yes, sorry, Kush, it's a national database called True Vision, and everything happens through that. So the final image gives Brexit. Sorry, I'm just going to look at the time. Yeah, I'm okay for time. The final image is Brexit. I asked all of you a question because it is such a strong word, and it's good to know that I'm amongst the company of people who sort of understand the challenges of the terminology Brexit. Brexit is a swear word for lots of people. The terminology Brexit makes somebody skip a heartbeat. It is, you feel, oh my God, I don't have the energy to explain myself to another person. I don't feel the need to defend myself and my community and my fellow nationals again to somebody else. The EU referendum campaign was absolutely disgraceful. It created such strong divide within the British society. It created such strong stereotypes about EU nationals. I remember during the referendum, we were approached by BBC and ITV and lots of different people saying, can we do some stories? And they said, listen, we're a small charity, we don't have a comms team. We need assurances that the story that you would do would be 100% positive. If you cannot assure it, we cannot give you access to the community, and we did not. So, but given that we were small, we had the recognition to understand that we are not going to give that opportunity for somebody to portray our community members in the way that their editor felt it was the strong story. So I think the effect of Brexit is going to be for many, many, many years. And for lots of EU nationals, it is a very embarrassing, hurtful, defensive, so demoralizing as well. And people talk about Brexit in such a blatant manner, but its effects are very strong and very deep. I'll just take a second here. So something I like to always do, because I believe that I'm an optimistic, positive person, is to always end on a good note and talk about what can be done. There is hope. There is always hope, and we can come together and create changes. So the communities, again, I'm very, very passionate about asset-based community development. It is, how can we create a platform for artists of different ages, but all of them coming together for one reason only. Again, the reason is, this may sound really silly. Manchester has a fantastic art scene. There's lots of art collectives and art groups. Again, all of our art collective members, most of them are very well connected. So my question to them was, at the first meeting, which was at Institute of Cervantes on Inskate, was that, do we need an art collective by EU nationals for EU nationals? And the answer everybody said was yes, because I was prepared to just have one meeting and not do anything else after that. And the reason is, the artist told us, we may go be parts of lots of collective and lots of groups, but they don't understand who we are. They don't understand our stories. They don't understand our jokes. They don't understand where we come from. So we want to be in a space where we are not having to always give subtitles for who we are as people. And that was quite a powerful realization. Again, we spent 10 months creating a logo, creating a manifesto, of bringing different artists together, again, deciding how are we going to have the art collective. So the Europia Art Collective just celebrated its 2nd birthday. It's been quite quiet over COVID, but in its first year, we went to the European Parliament. We were taken there by our MEP, Julie Ward. We were part of a couple of really high-profile festivals called MacFest, we're nominated for a couple of awards as well. So it is a real pride and glory. And I think lots of people who don't want help and support, but they just want to connect and belong, they can come and see our art collective activities. And we also have a department called Art and Culture, where we do cultural events and activities as well. The Roma community, I think the work that anybody can do for the Roma community is a drop in the ocean. The communities have faced discrimination for over 5 centuries. Nobody can do anything which is going to change their life significantly today. So there has to be a realization that there has to be continuous investment towards the Roma community to give them the same rights as the countries that they come from. Their identity is so unique and so fractured that a lot of work needs to be done to ensure that the Roma community feel empowered and supported and they have power. So we have a lovely Roma staff member, and we started Roma support on the 14th of April during COVID 2020. And I'm so pleased to say we have seen 120 individual clients. Please keep in mind, we are a very small charity. We are no longer a micro charity. We are a small charity with 15, 20 staff members, but 120 individual Roma clients, it is totally unheard of. And this is all because we provide them with the practical support that they require. Again, they trust us to come back to us. Again, very, very passionate about asset-based community development. And the person to the left of me in the red color top, that's Marlena. So Marlena is the Europia Women's Group coordinator. We created Europia Women's Group, again, after consultation period, after talking to people and recognizing there may be Polish Moms Group, there may be women's group for a particular health issue or for business or for parenting. We recognized there needed to be a space for European national women to come together and to create things. So we are really pleased to say that this is the first year that we applied for funding, and we got funding from Awards for All. We've got £10,000. Again, one of the first events that we're going to be celebrating is next month. It's called Romanian Blouse Day. I believe it's not an old traditional holiday. It is a new celebration which has come out. So we are going to be celebrating women from Romania, but at the same time inviting other women to do a cross-cultural exchange of ideas and thoughts. This is how you can get in touch with us. I'm going to keep our contact details there if you don't mind, but I would like to open up for questions, comments, thoughts, frustrations. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Kush. That was very, very interesting. Of course, I will be sharing your slides along with everybody else's. So if you can stop sharing your screen now, and we'll see if there's any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Sally. Thank you. It's Sally. If you are from the Roma community, I would love to connect with you. Please put my contact details. Please, if you could get in touch with us.
Anyone else got anything they would like to raise?
The child part of me wants to ask the 3 people who are here who have strong European connections to, if they have anything else to add, because I'm extremely aware that I'm not from the community. I'm a servant of the community. If I have missed anything, please feel free to share it.
I think Kat Purcell.
Yeah, Kat.
Yeah. Just a quick comment. I've got this thing next to my laptop every day, and which is helping a little bit. I think in terms of the feeling is It's the not knowing what's going to happen next and feeling absolutely powerless at influencing that conversation. So I'm in a position where I am absolutely petrified at the thought of leaving the UK to go to see my parents in Italy and not being let back. Like absolutely petrified. And I put a link in the chat of the experiences that some EU nationals are having that was picked up by The Guardian. And I know that the EU Commission is asking UK for clarifications. But to me, there's something really obvious about what happens if my mobile battery is dead? What happens if there is no Wi-Fi connection in that bit of the airport where I can actually go online to evidence that I'm legal? What happens if the system is down? I mean, it's computer, it's tech, isn't it? If you can break, it will. There are experiences of people who managed to successfully apply for settled status, went online and checked it 18, 20 months ago. And if you go online and check it now, it's not working. And there isn't a hotline. You can't pick up the phone and say to somebody, oh, can you check that for me? So what happens if that happens to you at the airport? So that's where my thinking is going, and it's not a very happy place, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and the sad stories where specifically the Roma community, they get persecuted because they often tend to take the coach from, just to clarify, the Roma community members can come from across Europe. But in the specific scenario, I'm talking about the Romanian Roma community. The coach company says that we need to see that you have an employment contract before you can sit on the coach. They will issue the ticket, they will take your money, but when you're coming on the coach, when you're sitting on the coach, you have to show your employment contract. Our staff member had to take a letter from me to say that she's employed, just in case if she was stopped. So there are lots of frustrating challenges like this going on at the border. So I think the inequalities faced by EU nationals, who people believe are, because they're white Europeans and Christians, they don't face discrimination. That's not true at all. Absolutely not true at all.
Anyone else got anything they'd like to say?
Oh, hi, Bethan here. I put something in the chat a little before. So we as a service, we do have quite a high cohort of young people who identify as Roma. And one of the challenges that we definitely have, so obviously we do quite intensive work with those young people, but it's really important that we find positive role models that they have a cultural connection to within their local communities, and that is something that I do really struggle to find. So I just wondered, just in terms of your awareness within Greater Manchester of what potential community support there is.
So please refer them to us. We would love to connect with them and give them volunteering opportunities, potential paid opportunities to work within the community. In terms of role model, I'm so pleased to announce the first Romanian councillor has been elected in Newcastle. And it's absolutely brilliant news. He's a maths teacher. And I think also it's important to mention that there also has been another Romanian, but not Roma councillor elected in Cambridgeshire. I think he's called Alexandra, and she's already part of a campaign called the 3 Million. But it is so fantastic to hear that there are 2 Romanian councillors within UK, and I think political representation is extremely important. For people who don't know, there is the Greek councillor in Manchester, there is a Russian-Ukrainian identity councillor in Salford, and there is a Latvian councillor from Manchester as well. Other than that, there isn't any EU representation within the local politics. There used to be a Lib Dem councillor in Prestwich. I'm not sure if she still is. I think she still could be. Again, Italian.
Is it Cristina Tegolo?
Yeah, is she still a councillor? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, yeah. So role models are extremely important. If we can support in any way, we are quite happy to create spaces. We are going to start drop-in sessions specifically for the Roma community on the first Saturday of every month at Roby Church in Longside. There's going to be immigration advice, welfare advice, mental health support, everything in Romanian language. But as soon as we identify other Roma community members, there is a large Hungarian Roma community in Bolton. There is Czech and Slovak Roma community in Salford. So as soon as we start engaging with them, we will start doing outreach work for them as well, specifically in the future. But who said, Bethan, who said that you have young Roma people, if you could connect, if you could send us an email, go somehow connect with us.
Yeah.
We were extremely interested to talk to you to find out how can we create opportunities, because we have the vaccine hesitancy in the Roma community is 99.99%. So we would love to work with your young people to create a comms campaign that they can champion forward. We will support them with all of the professional infrastructure, guidance. Again, we could do something together. Again, they will feel the sense of power.
Wonderful.
As young people.
Right, everyone, I'm really sorry to bring this to a halt, but we are officially end of time now. A lot of people have been asking in the chat if we could share your contact details.
Definitely.
One person's contacted me to say they don't want that, but for everyone else still in the room, everyone else happy for me to share your email contact addresses, and then you can carry on these conversations.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, yeah.
Please shout now if you are not happy with this. Everyone's giving me the thumbs up or waving at me, so that's brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much, everyone. That was beyond my expectations, and I can only thank Kush and Mel so much for this. I will be sharing everything after this event. It might not be today, but it'll certainly be tomorrow. I've also recorded this, so you can listen back if you want to, or share it with other people. We will be running more of these bite-sized learning events. I'm just in the process of putting together another lot of them, you know, about other different communities of identity within GM. So watch this space, look on our website, or if you subscribe to our e-bulletin, they'll all be put in there when they're ready. So thank you so much to all of you. You've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you, and I'll see you another time, hopefully. Bye, everyone.